Weather.
Answering the call. Running in when everything you feel says run out. Pushing yourself beyond your known limits to help. Living to tell the story. Visit scvolunteerfire.org.
This is Sports Talk with Phil Kornbluh, Chris Bergen, and Pat Daniel. Sports Talk is heard across the state on radio affiliates of the Sports Talk Media Network and is streaming live on SportsTalkSC.com, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil, Chris, and Pat with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sports Talk here on the Sports Talk Media Network on a big Thursday night in South Carolina. Great to have you with us. Phil Kornbluh at our coast. Making my way to Syracuse, flying out of Myrtle Beach in the morning, headed to Syracuse to cover Clemson and Syracuse on Saturday afternoon. We'll talk about that in a moment. Chris Bergen will be joining us from the Berge Palace over in Sardis. He'll be heading down to Statesboro, Georgia, Coastal Carolina, Georgia Southern on Saturday. Matt Smith will be going up to Knoxville to cover Gamecocks and Tennessee. We got it all covered for you here on Sports Talk this weekend. Make sure you follow our coverage on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. Follow along on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Pat Daniel back at our Columbia studios, making sure everything runs smoothly. And our phone number, 888-898-2525. That is the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number for you here on Sports Talk. So, Bergie, the news last night, the story from Gene Sapakoff kind of got everybody spinning about Clemson and a move somewhere, SEC, Big Ten. But today, folks up at Clemson, some reports up that way from other media, and a statement from Clemson sort of indicates that hold your horses. Nothing is imminent. Nothing is about to happen. And from what we're hearing, there's no place for the Tigers to go right now. It's not like they can announce they're leaving the ACC and they've got a new home to step into.
Right.
So I'm saying that slow down and don't put the old cart in front of the horse here. And we'll see what happens if that Board of Trustees meeting next week at Clemson really into a move by the Tigers going somewhere else. You got to have some place to go, right? You got to have some place to go. And I would think that from the standpoint of the national media, if the SEC or the Big Ten were prepared to take on other schools, Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, maybe somebody else, we'd be hearing that out there nationally, but there's been just crickets from that standpoint.
Well, and remember, Greg Sankey said back in early August that the SEC was fine and dandy with their current setup. Now, obviously, he left some wiggle room in there, saying that they will continue to explore things. I'm sort of paraphrasing what he said, but at that time, it seemed like the SEC was set with the additions of Oklahoma and Texas starting next year. And the Big Ten probably has done so much overhauling of their roster here the last couple of years. They're probably tired of expansion themselves. But I just don't see Gene Sapakoff, as connected as he is in our state, writing a story without having a pretty good idea that something is brewing. And you reference the statement, and I'll use that term loosely, that Clemson sent out today because it said nothing. It stated nothing other than the fact they said, and I'm quoting here, no changes since expansion announcement, talking about the ACC adding those 3 additional schools in late summer. Clemson's leadership has been aligned and consistent throughout this process and continues to position our university for long-term success. So whatever that means. And WSPA and our colleague Pete Yannity, they evidently asked for a copy of next week's agenda for the Clemson Board of Trustees meeting, which, of course, is public record, both Thursday and Friday. And nothing has been posted as of yet. And as of the writing of their story earlier today on their website, News 7's request for the agenda had not been heard upon, or at least they haven't gotten a response. So
yeah, I've got a copy of it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Let's see. First thing on the agenda, new methods for milking a cow. Boom, boom. I'm only kidding, Clemson people. I'm only kidding. But yeah, you're right. We'll have to see if anything comes out of that Board of Trustee meeting. I go back to what I've said before about all of this. And you know what? I mean, I'm even kind of copying what Dabo Sweeney said, or maybe he copied us. I don't know which one came first. I just don't understand, especially with Clemson taking on these others. I'm sorry, with the ACC taking on these other schools. Where is the need? Where is the rush for Clemson in its current state to have to find someplace else? Because, yeah, the money might be a little greater somewhere else. You've been fine where you've been financially. You've got, as I look at it, and I don't know where you're going to be 10 years from now. I mean, you might have space rockets on campuses to lure recruits to live in, space rockets that they're going to be bringing in. No telling what the next wave of inducements from a facility standpoint, schools are going to try to get to out-recruit the next one. It's so stupid. But you look at Clemson, and what is it that they're wanting? What is it that they are needing to compete where they are? And if you're Clemson and you're going to see a 12-team playoff, and that's the ultimate goal, there's going to be a 12-team playoff. Where are you going to be better suited to get to that 12-team playoff on a regular basis than where you are right now? And you might not make it this year because of your own mistakes that have cost you 2 games. But I got to believe, and we were talking last night, do they listen to Dabo Sweeney? Is he providing his input? If I'm Dabo Sweeney and I'm looking at it, I'm like, look, I'm already almost the highest paid coach in the country. So our finances doesn't affect that. I've already got one of the highest paid coaching staffs in the country when you look at my coordinators, or I did. Now, he's gotten a little cheaper as he's changed coordinators, but at one time, they weren't afraid to pay $1 million plus to their coordinators. And I think Riley's making over 2, isn't he? So they've not been afraid to pay their staff. Finances, not a problem there. They've not been afraid to spend money on Death Valley Memorial Stadium and do whatever they need to do to improve. They've just got a brand new locker room with a brand new tunnel to come out of, with all kinds of new additions there. Money, not an issue. They've got a relatively new indoor practice facility with brand new football offices and NIL center and an NFL center and you name it. The point is, money has never been a problem. So, yeah, can you go bank an extra $30 million a year? Do you need that? Certainly, you like to have it. Everybody's greedy, wants as much as they can get. But, and Dabo Sweeney said this, not just me, from a competitive standpoint, Clemson the money's not going to make any difference. They're already at the highest level. They're already competing. They're already winning championships. They're already beating teams that make more money in leagues that they are in than they do at Clemson. And why would you want to leave a situation where you are the big fish in the pond to step into a bigger pond where you're not going to be alone as the big fish?
Only thing I can think of, Phil, is fear. Because I think everybody is making sure they've got a lifeboat before the current setup of college football. And let's face it, that's all we're discussing. Because otherwise, I think Clemson is positioned awfully well for all of their other sports in the Atlantic Coast Conference. The Big Ten does not improve their basketball. As a matter of fact, I would argue that the Big Ten is a better basketball league right now than the ACC. So it doesn't help them there. They would dominate the Big Ten probably in baseball. So you can make an argument here or there that there would be some teams that would do better if they moved to the Big Ten. If they came to the SEC, they wouldn't be anywhere close to the dominant team in baseball. They would be another solid team in a league that's filled with solid teams. I just think their schools now are starting to look and concern themselves, as you pointed out, 10 years down the road. Are we going to be looking at just 2 mammoth conferences, Big Ten, SEC? And want to make sure that we're already in those leagues before the ACC, the Big 12, and what's left of the Pac-2 goes away. But the problem is, if we get to that point down the road, Clemson's going to find a landing spot, you would think. They're too valuable a commodity in college football to not find some place to go. So I'm like you. I don't understand the rush because I think Clemson is doing quite well financially. Yeah, everybody would love to have $30 million more, but what else can they add?
Mm-hmm.
To what they presently have. I mean, how many more seats do you want to add to Memorial Stadium? I think they're probably at where they would like to be capacity-wise. They certainly are keeping up with every other facility up there. They've done renovations to Little John. There was a interesting story out this afternoon that Eric Bakich is talking about possibly pushing the fences back at Doug Kingsmore because he thinks the stadium is too small in terms of length of the fences. John Blau had that story from the Post and Courier. But other than that, I mean, just minor improvements that I think their budget can probably already handle.
All right, so that's the latest we're hearing on that. Our phone number, 888-898-2525. Feel free to dial us up. Love to hear from you tonight. Take your phone calls, hear what's on your mind about that, about the Clemson-Syracuse game, about the South Carolina and Tennessee game, about the Coastal Georgia-Southern game, other games around the state coming up this weekend as we take a look at the schedule. As we got everybody across the state playing, except for a couple of teams. A couple of teams have got the weekend off. Furman, of course, is one of those teams with the weekend off, coming off their win over Mercer, looking really, really good at this point. Furman 3-1 on the season. That lone loss coming to South Carolina. Wofford plays at Chattanooga. Terriers looking for that first win of the season. Presbyterian, after a weekend off, will be at Butler as they head up to Indiana. South Carolina State has the weekend off after beating the Citadel. Charleston Southern, coming off a big loss at Western Carolina, will play host to Kennesaw State. Newberry and Carson Newman hook up in Newberry. Newberry beat Erskine last week. The Citadel will be home to Western Carolina. Bulldogs looking for their first win. And you've got Erskine playing at Wingate. Flying Fleet 0-4 on the season. North Greenville will host West Florida. Limestone will be home to Mars Hill. Limestone's won 2 in a row after losing their first 2. How about Benedict? 4-0. The Tigers have allowed 10 points all season. And they'll be home to Morehouse. And Allen, which is 4-0, will be home to Fort Valley State. So are we looking at an undefeated Benedict and an undefeated Allen facing off on the battle for Taylor Street come November?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be fun? That would be a lot of fun.
That would be very, very fun to watch. Okay, phone number 888-898-2525. Also coming up, we will have a visit from our man across the pond over there in Rome, MJ Ward, who is at, of course, the Ryder Cup, and they've set the opening lineup, so we'll get the lowdown from him on that. That'll be at about 6:30. He'll be joining us, which will be about, 1:30 or so over there, maybe 12:30. I think it's 5 hours, 5-hour difference.
And an interesting decision by Zach Johnson, sitting down some of USA's heavy hitters, including Jordan Spieth and Brooks Koepka, for some reason, that are not going to play the opening foursomes tomorrow.
Pat tells us it's 6 hours. 6 hours.
6 hours. There we go.
And let's see. No Ben Portnoy tonight. Ben had something come up, so he had to bail. He'll be back with us next week. 7:05. Mike Morgan on the move, and at 7:35, it'll be another edition of Will and the Thrill. Looking forward to hearing what they have to say. Pat, what you got?
I just wanted to add to y'all's discussion a little bit, and hearing Clemson push back against potentially departing the ACC along with maybe some other schools, Florida State, whomever else may go. I want to remind people back in 2021 when Southern Cal President Carol Folt spoke up against, she said, quote unquote, in a meeting of Pac-12, the commissioner and then the presidents, the ADs from various universities, she said she did not understand why the Pac-12 would expand and expressed surprise that they were even talking about expanding the Pac-12, according to multiple sources. Basically, the point I'm getting at is she reportedly shut down the idea of the Pac-12 trying to expand. People are now theorizing that was because she and UCLA presidents were working behind the scene, essentially colluding together so as to preemptively get their, have their exit strategy and leave everybody else behind. So I'm not saying Clemson's doing this or anything like that. I'm not trying to insinuate, but what I am saying directly is I'm not going to believe anything until I see like pen to paper, until I see them play the next season, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody's going to say what they have to say publicly, but we do not know what's happening behind closed doors. UCLA athletic director Martin Jarmon said that they chose to leave to go to the Big Ten because, quote, we did it to operate in a position of strength. I don't believe there's a college administrator in the country that does not recognize that clearly there are two conferences that are trying to separate themselves from everybody else. It's the SEC, the Big Ten, and everybody else. And it seems as though, at least according to the UCLA athletic director, the Southern Cal University president, chancellor, whatever, they clearly saw the SEC and the Big Ten and then everybody else just trying to stay above water, just treading water. And you can't help but wonder if other schools, Clemson, Florida State, we've heard rumors of maybe Virginia Tech, Miami, North Carolina, whomever it may be that inevitably tries to depart the ACC, they're doing whatever they can to stay above water, and they're going to do whatever they have to do behind closed doors to do whatever is best for their university, for their athletic department. So forgive me for saying this, but I'm not going to believe anything that these folks are saying publicly because we don't know what is happening behind closed doors. We've already seen it. Now, looking back in the rearview mirror a year or 2 years ago, we're able to see what UCLA and Southern Cal were doing behind closed doors. Are we really supposed to be naive enough to believe that other schools aren't doing the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a shame. If you can't believe your college ADs, commissioners, and coaches, like who can you believe anymore in this country, right? It was like the last line of believability, and now they're just blowing it up all in front of us.
There's no more Mr. Rogers out there, Phil.
No.
Mr. Rogers is no longer with us. But Pat's right. And even if Clemson has signed an agreement or almost close to signing an agreement, quite frankly, they can't say that. And Pat's right. We all should look at anything they publish as with skepticism because they almost have to. They almost have to toe the line until they've got a place to go.
All right, phone number, 888-898-2525. We'll hit our first break and come back with more here on Sports Talk. If you want to jump on board, feel free to give us a call. 888-898-2525, South Carolina Education Lottery. Lucky number for you here on Sports Talk. And Shane Beamer says tonight on his call-in show that Marion Brown, O'Donnell Fortune, David Spalding, they practiced every day this week. They are not 100%, but they will be available for Saturday. Ja'Kai Moore has a shoulder, and he is questionable. Gamecocks really banged up on that offensive line. 7 guys, Beamer said the other day, dealing with a variety of injuries. We'll talk more. We'll break it down for you. Give us our thoughts. Give you our thoughts on what we think will happen in those games coming up on Saturday as we continue with Sports Talk after this break on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Look no further than Founders Federal Credit Union for all your mortgage loan needs. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or upgrading your space, Founders has many loan options to fit your lifestyle and your budget, such as low fixed and adjustable rate and flexible terms. Plus, Founders never charges PMI, private mortgage insurance. Our mortgage loan officers are here to answer your questions and help you start the home buying process. Stop by an office or visit foundersfcu.com to apply for a mortgage today. Federally insured by NCUA, membership qualification required. Terms and conditions apply. Equal housing lender.
Hi, I'm Jim Corbett. I've been an attorney for more than 30 years. There's one thing I've learned about injury cases. It's you need the personal touch. You need the lawyer to get to know you and describe your damages. You don't want a case manager talking to an insurance company, and then talking to you, and then talking to maybe to a lawyer with limited experience at the last minute to try to settle a case. I talk to you. I find out what your case is about. Jim at JimCorbettAttorney.com. Jim at JimCorbettAttorney.com for your injury cases.
Dumpster Plus is your solution to a more cost-effective and professional work site. Dumpster Plus provides a roll-off dumpster and porta-john in one. Give them a call at 803-500-5094 and ask them about 2 services for the price of one. It's one call, one delivery, 2 services, locally owned and operated in Columbia, and that means you'll talk to a real live local person, ready to get what you need with a 24-hour turnaround guaranteed. Whether your worksite is residential or commercial, big or small, near or far, you'll save money with Dumpster Plus. Waste management solutions never look so good. Call Dumpster Plus at 803-500-5094. That's 803-500-5094 for Dumpster Plus.
You ain't nothing but a dog. I get it. Bro.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. Phil Kornblue, Chris Bergen, and Pat Daniel with you. 888-898-2525 is the number. We'll have some recruiting information for you coming up as well. A visit from Carl Hill and from Will Merritt. Mike Morgan, get his take on everything we've been talking about and the games coming up this weekend. And also MJ Ward from over in Rome, getting ready for the Ryder Cup, which will tee off bright and early over there at 7:30 in the morning, which will be 1:30 in the morning over here. And again, we'll be heading off to Syracuse to cover Clemson and the Qs tomorrow. And also we'll have Smitty over in Knoxville for the Gamecocks and the Vols. Chris will be with Coastal Carolina for the Chanticleers and the Eagles of Georgia Southern. As I think about South Carolina and Tennessee, guys, and looking more closely at the game now, I feel good about taking the Gamecocks and the 12. I'm not picking the Gamecocks to win, much like Georgia. Again, got to show me a little bit more. I don't think they're going to go in there and win, but I think that it'll be within the 12-point spread. So give me something along the lines of, I think this will be a pretty high-scoring ball game. I'm going to go along the lines of 42-28. No, I'm sorry, that's not right. 42 to 28, 31, 40, 42 to 31, 42-31, just inside. I think Tennessee is going to be about a 10-point favorite, a 10-point winner here. I know Tennessee's offense is not as dynamic as it was last year. They're not quite as fast as they were last year, but they run it well. They still have an opportunity to throw it over the top. South Carolina had a lot of trouble stopping the pass last week. They've been pretty good against the run statistically, where they've had trouble stopping the pass. Well, here you're going to get a chance again to stop the run. If South Carolina's if their defensive front continues to grow and mature and play well and has a big game Saturday, then that might indeed turn the game in their favor. If they can put some pressure on Milton, who can run, but he's also very big back there, and I think you can get your hands on him and sack him. I think that, the Gamecocks could possibly do that if they continue to improve up front, like if T.J. Sanders has another one of his big games. So I'm going to go taking the points with the Gamecocks. Looking for the Vols at home, though. They'll be extremely emotional, very high. It'd be great for South Carolina, Bergie, if they could go steal one in Knoxville. That would really turn their season in a different direction. But I don't think they can do it.
I don't think so either, but I think your pick of getting the Gamecocks underneath the number is probably solid, assuming they don't have as miserable a first quarter as they had 2 years ago up in Knoxville, where they were down 28-0 at the end of the first, and all bets were off and the game was over. Yeah, they've got to do what they did at Georgia. They've got to find a way to get on the scoreboard in the first quarter. They've got to hang in there through the first half, keep that crowd at bay, because the crowd to me is going to be a bigger deal than the team. Tennessee's going to be fired up to play. It's an SEC game, but the sort of revenge thing, I'm not sure it plays as much as we in the media and fans think it does on the actual teams as it will the fans. I think the volunteer fan base, especially with it being a night game, this may be as hostile an atmosphere as the Gamecocks will see all season. and they cannot go down 2-3 scores early in that ball game, or they've got no shot. So they've got to find a way to get their sea legs early, like they did against Georgia, maybe opening possession and score, take that crowd out of it, and then go play after that. But, yeah, they've got to survive the first quarter, which they didn't do 2 years ago.
Yeah. Strike quickly. I mean, what did they do against Georgia, right? They took the football. They went down the field. They scored. If I recall, I think Georgia responded, but the Gamecocks, they kicked a field goal, I think. Then the Gamecocks went down and scored. I know it was 14-3 at halftime. So, I mean, the Gamecocks looked, they played that first half at Georgia just like you've got to play a game in that sort of setting. Now is Tennessee, they lose to Florida, Georgia's Georgia. I still don't know how good Georgia is, even with that win over South Carolina. Is Tennessee conceivably better than Georgia? Is South Carolina stepping into a tougher situation?
It's a great question. I don't know the answer to that, and the records would say no right now, but we'll find out this Saturday.
All right, going to hit the break. We'll be back. Don't go away.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here is tonight's forecast. We're clear and comfy this evening, a low temp dipping to 62. Tomorrow, nice with mostly sunny skies, a high topping out at 83. The weekend looking good, too. Saturday and Sunday, we'll have sunshine, high temperatures around 84 each day. We'll also stay dry next week and continue the high temps into the mid-80s. I'm Kevin Cohen with your On Point local weather.
Ever wonder why more businesses don't provide the same excellent service as, say, Chick-fil-A? At Hometown 803, they do. They're your family-run, all things South Carolina store, famous for their 803 area code hats with the crescent moon. They also have Carolina and Clemson-themed hats and their latest drop, PVC patch hats, which are just on fire. Their local high school partner hats are the hats that give back with each sale. Visit their store in downtown Lexington next to McDonald's or online at hometown803.com. Use code RADIO at checkout to get 15% off.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting California Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a law raising the minimum wage for fast food workers to $20 an hour. The raise takes effect April 1st. It applies to fast food restaurants that have at least 60 locations. It does not apply to restaurants that make and sell their own bread. California is now among the first states to have a minimum wage specifically for fast food workers. New Jersey Senator Robert Menendez remained defiant in the face of federal bribery charges, telling a room full of his Senate Democratic colleagues he has no plans to resign. Speaking at a closed-door caucus luncheon on Thursday in the Capitol, Menendez echoed his previous public statements. On Wall Street, the Dow by 116 points, the Nasdaq rose 108. More details at srnnews.com.
There's more than one kind of customer when it comes to Shooter's Choice. First, there's the customer who knows what's what, has a pretty good idea of what he or she likes. You're looking for a few things. First, a good selection. Yep, Shooter's Choice has a huge selection. Firearms, ammo, accessories, optics, even gun safes. You're looking for good and fair pricing. Oh yeah, Shooter's has been around as your local stop forever because they treat you right. And how about customer service? Absolutely the best you'll find anywhere. The folks who work at Shooter's Choice are shooters and hunters just like you. They know their products. They can answer your question. And that brings me to the other type of customer. Someone maybe more like me. No expert for sure, but wants to learn from the right people. I don't need some big box store guy who works in the shoe department half a week, sporting goods the other half. I need the experts at Shooter's Choice who will treat me right, answer my questions as simple as they might be. They'll make my experience excellent. Online, it's shooterschoicesc.com or visit them in person on Sunset Boulevard in West Columbia. Make it your first choice, your best choice. Make it Shooter's Choice.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
Hey, it's Jay with the Cigar Militia, Columbia's premium cigar store. Have you noticed the change in weather? Some people call it fall. We call it cigar smoking season. Or better yet, it's football weather. Come in and check out our humidor and do what I do and get your go-to stick or try something new. We've got an awesome staff willing to walk you through and help you find your new favorite. And besides, you're going to need some celebration cigars for when your favorite team wins the big game. The Cigar Militia, 1410 Colonial Life Boulevard.
I sure like to brag about good local businesses. Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning is a great local biz. Josh and his team stress customer service as their top priority. Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning came out to my house. I had a toilet that wasn't working right, a garbage disposal that died. They came out right on time, told me everything they were going to do, and explained the price of each repair before even bringing in the tools. I knew exactly what I was getting and exactly what it would cost. Their prices are fair, their team is courteous and professional, plus they did a great job fixing what needed fixing in my home. I am very careful about making any recommendations, and I'm thrilled and confident to suggest you call Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning for any plumbing needs. If it's a repair or to replace something, if it's that tankless water heater that you've always wanted to give you that endless hot water and save you some money, they unclog drain and sewer lines and so much more. Online, you'll find them at franklinplumbing.sc.com or just give Josh and those great folks a phone call, 799-2222. That's 799-2222, and tell them you heard about them from here at The Point.
This is a great new opportunity, and these are the 12 guys that are going to push to achieve the main goal, which is strictly to keep the cup here in the United States.
Honor, pride, and country are bigger forces. Forces which in the unique golfing arena of the Ryder Cup search the souls of these refined technicians for more primal proof of their greatness.
To say I'm excited about these gents would be an understatement. They check all the boxes. Fierce competitors, great versatility, great ability when it comes to pairings, when it comes to fit for Marco Simone. A great fit for each other. So we'll be ready to go.
He's made for this. Franklin continues to apply the pressure. That is a really good turn. To win the cup back. Slow. Can you believe that? What a shot that was by Justin Thomas.
Anybody on that team can beat anybody on the other team. That's match play. That's the Ryder Cup.
What an intro for MJ Ward. He probably wants to grab his putter and run out to the 18th green and hammer in a 35-footer. There you go as we get to our Ryder Cup coverage here on Sports Talk, brought to you by MJ Ward, International Golf Writer of Acclaim. You can read MJ in a number of different places, including Golf World Magazine. It is 12:36 over in Rome, so he's probably just knocking off his third glass of wine tonight or this morning over there. MJ, welcome in. How are you?
Well, it's a pleasure, Phil. And just as a quick correction, I work for a competitor, not Golf World, so my link is with Golf Today. So
Golf Today, okay.
Golf Today is sort of like I'm not with NBC, I'm with CBS. So in any event, a pleasure to be with you. The countdown is coming up real fast. I mean, we're going to be teeing it off here in a few hours with the first match. It's really exciting. There's nothing like Ryder Cup play. It's it doesn't need any hype. Unlike a lot of sporting events, it's pretty straightforward, and I think that's what really makes it great. And there's the tradition. I mean, it's been going on for quite some time. I mean, just about 100 years now. So it's not one of these made-for-TV events. This is the real deal, and I think it's going to be great. And I think anybody who watches the players when they get to the first tee, you're going to feel the excitement from the crowd that's going to be there.
Yeah, I think you're right. Speaking of television, I mean, this thing will be on at 1:30 in the morning here in America, and I guess on the West Coast that would equate to like 11:30 or so, but still very, very late. That'll be the live coverage. Do you know what the plans are for later in the day or prime time later that day? Any plans to replay it? What's the TV lineup look like?
Well, that's a good question because obviously, you have American football, both collegiate on Saturday, and then you have, obviously the NFL on Sunday. NBC does have a collegiate contract, but the reality is, I don't know how they will do that. It may be played again on Peacock, simply by virtue of the fact of the hour being what it is. I mean, being 6 hours ahead, it puts it puts them in and I wouldn't say a difficult position. Everything today, Phil, is done live. I mean, what's amazing to me is, if you go back, and I can remember this, I'm sure you can remember this, when they used to have tape-delayed events. Mm-hmm. Tape-delayed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I mean, it's hard to imagine. I mean, there were NBA finals with tape-delayed. That doesn't exist anymore. I just think the sports world being what it is, people make adjustments from whether they did breakfast at Wimbledon or they did whatever other event goes on, the Olympic Games, obviously, World Cup games. This happens to be one of those times when the audience would be obviously 6 hours. Is a differential between Rome and New York. Obviously, it's 9 with Los Angeles. So it'll be interesting to see, and I think they probably will do some of that. I mean, clearly the highlights will be highlighted again and again and again. So, I think it'll be something that people will see. But I think it comes at a good time. I think for a lot of people, seeing morning golf, if you're in the Eastern time zone, will be kind of interesting. Clearly when the singles matches come up on Sunday, it's the most unbelievable day in golf because of all the things that are going on when everybody's out there all at one time.
Ryder Cup set to begin tomorrow morning. MJ Ward with us here from Italy to preview all the matchups. And MJ, to your point about tape delay, keep in mind the greatest sporting event or the greatest upset of all time, perhaps, certainly of the 20th century, the Miracle on Ice actually was shown on tape delay. So we've come a long way since 1980. Got a question about Zach Johnson's decision to run out his lineup for tomorrow morning. In particular, I get maybe Justin Thomas not starting. He has not played all that well. But Jordan Spieth and Brooks Koepka both on the bench to open up tomorrow. That surprised me a little bit. What kind of thoughts do you think he had going into that decision to sit those guys along with Wyndham Clark, who will also not play in the opening round tomorrow?
The hard thing to figure out on this thing is sometimes people get they get way ahead of themselves because until we see what these guys are able to do or not do, a lot of this is about really, a lot of internal debate among the captain and his vice captains. I was kind of surprised that Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth did not lead off. I said that last night to you folks.
Yeah.
Justin Thomas, everybody talks about he had a poor season. He did, but he played well at the Fortinet event. He came in 5th. We're going to have to see where he is. I'm of the belief that if somebody is struggling, you don't really want to hide them because then it just increases the pressure point when they come back out and play, whenever that's going to be. One of the interesting pairings, Zach went with 2 rookies in one match. I mean, he has Max Homa and Brian Harman. I mean, clearly we're talking in ages. We're not talking guys who are 22, 23 years old. They're experienced players, but there's a couple of combinations out here that are going to be interesting. I think the real Donnybrook one is going to be the last one. It's going to be Fleetwood and McIlroy against Xander and Cantlay. I think it'll be interesting also because Luke Donald flipped the format. I mean, the captains have that right to do that. So he went with the foursomes to start out the Ryder Cup, and then having the 4-ball matches in the afternoon. And I think for many Americans, if you said to them, if they approached the golf course and they said, we're going to play foursomes today, they'd have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, they would just think that it's 4 people playing. But when you play alternate shot, you really need to be really keen about, how the chemistry and the personalities are going to jive with one another. As I said last night, if you have a guy who's driving the ball wildly, I mean, he's going to be driving the ball at least half the holes. And you're going to have to really be able to handle that. And with the conditions of the golf course being what they are, I mean, it's going to be, it's going to be tough coming out of the rough. It'll be interesting to see how this happens. I mean, the Americans have not done well on foursomes play. I think the last time they won the session probably goes back until like around 2002, 3, somewhere in that time frame. So, you need to get off to a decent start. Like any home game, you want to take the fans a little bit out of it, because if they get some momentum going, you don't want to go into day 2 in a Ryder Cup and then be trailing, say, by 2-3 points, because now you're in must situations. That's what you really want to avoid. For the ideal situation for the U.S. squad would probably be either trailing or at least be no less than tied going into the singles matches. I think that would be, that's always been the chalk, that the Americans have the greater depth of players when they all play. And obviously in singles, you have to play. Everybody plays. So nobody sits on the sidelines. Until then, you're going to get a lot of the jockeying that's going to go back and forth. So we'll see. We could speculate all day here. These are all world-class players. So, any one of these guys could tune it up tomorrow and maybe not have played well in the practice rounds, and then something clicks. And it could go the other way just as well. There's no way to speculate that. I just do think that holding Thomas aside only increases the pressure on him when he does come out.
Right.
I think that's something. He's a seasoned player. It's not like he hasn't been through this. But because of this year and the circumstances tied to how he was selected, there's going to be more heat put on him. And he may put a lot on himself, too, to be fair. Justin, is the kind of guy who expects a lot of himself. So I would think that, he wants to come out and certainly demonstrate, what he's got to offer. And, I was kind of amazed that he wasn't put in the opening of what was going to go on. The other factor to keep in mind is, you got two guys with the Spanish connection and the English connection. There probably isn't a foul word that Tyrell Hatton and John Rahm can't say. Out loud. If these guys get off to a shaky start against Scheffler and Burns, it'll be interesting to see how they jive together, because that's a unique pairing. You have gasoline with nitroglycerin being put together. That could go anywhere. They could really run the table. And on the flip side, we're going to find out how well Scotty has had his putting adjustment. There's been a lot of speculation and talk about this. Of all places to find out, Ryder Cup play is the ultimate test to find out if you've got the right touch and are able to make the putts when they count.
MJ, our guys boat raced Europe 2 years ago in the most recent Ryder Cup at Whistling Straits, but haven't won on European soil in 30 years. It clearly can't just be the golf course. Do the fans at the Ryder Cup make that big a deal in a sport that's not normally sort of generated by, pumped up with the fans? Is that the difference? The Ryder Cup fans just make all the difference in the world, whether you're playing here in the United States or overseas?
Well, I will tell you this. If you have a thin skin, you should not play in Ryder Cup matches, because you have to go into your own silo. I have heard some of the foulest language, and not to say I haven't heard it. I have heard it. Not just at that particular event, but usually at the golf situation, you don't really get a lot of this banter that goes on. Clearly, sometimes the players encourage it based on how demonstrative they get to be. If you remember the Patrick Reed, Rory McIlroy singles matches from Hazeltine a few years back, the crowd was just electric. It was the play was off the charts, and then it got to the point where you kind of cross the line where players will be hearing certain things. They have boosted up security, but until you ban liquor sales, there is nothing to prevent somebody. You are right on top of the action. This is not like a football game where you're in the stands and they can kind of go in there with security and remove you. When you're on a golf course, anything is possible in terms of what's being said. So to answer your question, yeah, I do think the home crowd has certainly an impact on what goes on. But I also think that players have to constantly be aware of the fact that other past champions have gone through situations in which they've had to deal with unruly fans. The classic example, not even Ryder Cup play, when Nicklaus beat Palmer at Oakmont in '62, he heard many different comments about Fat Jack, and Nicklaus said he just put his blinders on. And I think that's what these guys are going to have to do. You just have to buckle it up and get ready to play. They're all seasoned players, and if you let somebody influence your play, then frankly, I would have to question whether or not your focus is on playing or your focus is on to somebody yelling at you. I mean, I think that's where the line's got to get drawn, and I think there will be appropriate action taken if they cross the line with fans taking place. But the Americans have a tough road to hoe to keep the Ryder Cup in possession. 30 years, they're never going to hear the end of that until it gets done. So, if it's not done this time, guaranteed when they go to Ireland in 4 years, they're going to hear it all over again. So they need to finally get this monkey off the back.
All right, MJ, before we let you go, for the viewer, for the fan back here, is there a stretch of holes that will make the difference one way or another that people should be kind of glued into? Like you see a lot of different majors, there's a stretch where you make the move, and because for whatever reason, it's a par 5 that's reachable, a drivable par 4, whatever the case may be. Is there a stretch there on this golf course where things are going to be really happening that one side or another is going to make a move?
Well, I think if people watch the telecast, you'll see the par 4 16th hole. It plays a little over 300 yards. You're hitting from an elevated tee to a green. It's a tempting target. If you're trailing in a match, you're going to have to start to think about, do we take a chance now or do we hold off? But clearly, the 18th hole, if they get to it in a match, is a downhill par 5. You always have to think about the water that's on that hole. Phil, to be honest with you, with match play, it's really not about the hole per se. It's about the psychology of never giving up. I mean, one of the things about match play, when a man hits a really fantastic shot, you've got to counter immediately. You don't have 3-4 holes to think about it or come back later. So that mentality has got to exist. I mean, if a guy hits a really superb golf shot, you have to counter that immediately to stay in the hole or to make that other person think that the hole is not over yet. And some guys can do that, and there are some people that can't. And, over the stretch of Ryder Cups that I've seen, you would think that Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson would have been dominant in Ryder Cup play. They were not. So, there's no way to know who's going to step up and not step up. The golf course is going to influence a lot of this, but it's all going to come down to the basic things that always happens in golf. How well are you hitting the tee shot? Are you putting the approach shot in play in the perfect position on the green? And then ultimately, at the end of the day, who's making the putts? If you can't putt and you can't chip, then you can't win. And it's really that simple. There really isn't much more to say, whether it's Marco Simone or it happens to be Whistling Straits or Hazeltine or any of the other courses that have ever hosted a Ryder Cup. It always comes down to execution. The last thing I will say on this, I remember talking with Lee Trevino a number of years back, and I asked him about Ryder Cup play since he captained one of the teams. And he said, Matt, the real simple thing is your 4 horses, your 4 big horses, they got to produce. They don't produce, you lose. And, our 4 horses are going to have to be better than the 4 key horses on the European side because ultimately, they have the star power and they need to show what they've got. And we're going to find out a lot about that tomorrow morning starting out of the gate when Scheffler and Rahm re-meet with each other since the last time they were at Whistling Straits when Scotty took out John. I know that the Spaniard is looking to have some kind of payback, and I think tomorrow's first match could really be an opportunity to see how prepared both of the top players in the world are. I mean, they're in the top 4 in the world. It'll be interesting to see how well they play it up against each other because I think it's going to set the tone for a lot of what goes on for the rest of the day.
MJ, great stuff. We appreciate it as always. Look forward to having you with us tomorrow night on Birdies and Bogeys and Biceps. And you can fill us in on the first day, and you can match golf wits with George Bryan III as well. So we'll talk to you tomorrow night for us, and I guess it would be the next morning for you, whatever
Saturday morning.
And
I have my pajamas on, Phil, so I'm going to say arrivederci, and we will talk with each other tomorrow.
And again, let's remind everybody, you can be read at Golf Today, right? Golf Today.
That's correct. Golf Today. And like I said, I think what you're going to find, I think when we get to tomorrow, we're going to have a lot to talk about based on what happened with the matches after the first day.
Sounds good, my friend. Thank you. Have a great morning,
MJ.
Night, whatever.
Thank you, guys.
Tuck yourself in with your teddy bear. Okay, MJ from over there in Rome. Appreciate that very much. The lineup for the foursomes tomorrow, it will look like this. Going off at 7:35 will be John Rahm, Terrell Hatton against Scotty Scheffler and Sam Burns. 15 minutes later, the second match, Victor Hovland, Ludwig Aberg against Max Homa and Brian Harmon. 8:05, match 3, Shane Lowry, Sepp Straka against Ricky Fowler and Colin Morikawa. Match 4 at 8:20, Rory McIlroy, Tommy Fleetwood against Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay. So there you go. Ready to rock and roll with the Ryder Cup. We're going to hit the break here on Sports Talk, and we'll be right back in just a moment. Pick back up on talking about the Gamecocks and Tigers coming up this weekend. At 7:05, Mike Morgan will join us. Morgan on the move. 7:35, it'll be Will and the Thrill as they break it down for us as well. We'll be back after this break. Don't go away.
George Bryan for Tsunami Bar Sports, our inventor, David Abernathy, has always said Tsunami Bar technology allows us to take the training to the grass. Now I know through my sport of golf that natural agility can be converted to athletic ability. And why is this, Tsunami Robbie?
Transferring the training to the grass. This may be the most undervalued characteristic of the Tsunami flexible bar technology. The Tsunami bar action loads and unloads at the concentric and eccentric transition points. This is what we call reversal forces. And the Tsunami bar is the only bar and training device that I know of that can train these reversal forces adequately at speed.
Hey, this is Phil Kornbluth. The Tsunami Bar is a terrific training device, whether you're working on your fitness or your golf game. It's convenient, it's easy to use, and you won't feel beat up afterwards. Be sure to click on the digital ad on SportsTalkSC.com and get 5% off any order using promo code BBB5. Don't wait. Order today.
Your home is where your memories live. It's where you laugh and where you love. We understand the importance of the valuables under your roof, tangible and intangible alike. So no matter what's around the corner, we'll be there, offering you and your family the support that's made Farm Bureau Insurance a trusted name for nearly 70 years. You deserve more. You deserve a promise. Learn more at scfbins.com.
Call me, Alex Satterfield, at 803-749-9171 for all of your Midlands insurance needs.
This year's Carolina and Clemson Jackpot $5 scratch-off tickets give you a chance to win up to $200,000, whether you're a Gamecock or a Tiger. It's Palmetto Series time, so show your school spirit, feel that team pride, and get your tickets for a chance to win up to $200,000.
Yeah, baby!
As you know, in this state, winning the Palmetto Series does matter that much. See SCEducationLottery.com for odds and details.
We are back on Sports Talk. Thanks again to MJ for being with us from over in Rome. Between Chuck Reedy and MJ over in Rome, I feel like we should be doing what the Romans do, which is drink a lot of wine and play a lot of golf and do other crazy stuff. A couple of messages on our stream. Let's see here. Our buddy Danny over in Florence. Good to hear from you, Danny. We always get warm, loving messages from Danny. Why don't you talk about a team in the top 20 instead of the crappy teams in this state? Go Duke. Boy, you know, once in a blue moon, once in a blue moon, Duke's got a decent football team, and Danny can't, he can't handle it. He's got to let us hear about it. Here's one from our man Eddie.
Before you go to that will be a really interesting game Saturday. What game day is going to be in Durham for the first time probably ever. And
for football.
If they can pull that off against Notre Dame, look out.
Who do you think? Have they announced the old guest picker? Is it going to be Krzyzewski? I mean, why wouldn't it be Krzyzewski, right?
It's got to, as much as they love Krzyzewski at ESPN, it's got to be.
Got to be. From Eddie, it's the world mentality versus America. Has a lot to do with other success. Right, not wrong, but it does exist. They rise up and their fans, to them it's to them it's us against America in their minds, talking about
That's interesting.
Fans over there. Bad as our problems are, well, he continues, bad as our problems are, the world mostly envies us. Just my opinion. Thank you, Eddie. Yeah, I would agree with that. Everybody wants to be American, right?
Right.
That's why so many people try to get in here.
Since our Ryder Cup team has won over there, there's got to be a reason other than the golf. Because we clearly have as good of golfers in the United States as anywhere in the world. I will, and I think MJ brought up an interesting point about the foursomes. I think that's the problem we have in match play is golf's such an individual game. I don't know that our guys translate to, all right, I normally hit it 325 yards, but the problem is the guy I'm playing with is not a good wedge player. So I can't hit it that far because I'll put him in a bad spot.
Yeah,
I don't know that our guys adjust to that all that well.
Yeah, George has made that comment many times on birdies and bogeys. He's talked about the Europeans being better team players than the Americans. But the Americans, we do own the overall lead in the Ryder Cup Series by a pretty wide margin. We've had trouble over there. Maybe this will be the year they break through on foreign soil. And we'll be back, top of the hour break.
Thank you for pushing the button. I thank you. Programming thanks you. America thanks you.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. The federal government is facing shutdown this week as Republicans demand cuts in federal spending and a shutdown of the southern border. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says he's discussed the border issue with some senators.
I've talked this morning to some Democratic senators over there that are more aligned with what we want to do. They want to do something about the border. So trying to work to see, could we put some border provisions in that current Senate bill that would actually make things a lot better.
The shutdown will begin Sunday if Congress is not able to enact a funding plan. The House Government Oversight Committee has begun an impeachment inquiry into President Biden and his dealings with son Hunter. House Government Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer says this inquiry is warranted.
The American people demand accountability for this culture of corruption. They demand to know how these schemes have compromised President Biden and threatened our national security. They demand safeguards to be put in place to prevent public officials from selling access to their public office for private gain.
Comer announced he was issuing subpoenas for additional banking records from Hunter Biden and the president's brother, James Biden. New Jersey Senator Robert Menendez remained defiant in his face of federal bribery charges, telling a room full of his Senate Democratic colleagues he has no plans to resign. Speaking at a closed-door caucus luncheon on Thursday in the Capitol, Menendez echoed his previous public statements in response to last week's indictment, according to a person who attended the private luncheon and requested anonymity to discuss it. Menendez has repeatedly denied wrongdoing and pledged that he will beat the charges that he worked to secretly advance Egyptian interests. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 116 points, the Nasdaq rose 108, the S&P advanced 25. More at townhall.com.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call now at 800-297-7411 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau and a Christian-owned company. Don't get stuck in the endless cycle of payments. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Christian-owned Total Financial Freedom now at 800-297-7411. That's 800-297-7411. 800-297-7411.
Correspondent Sarah Klein reports President Biden has sent disaster assistance to Louisiana as saltwater threatens the state's drinking water.
Essentially, it means that FEMA can come in and coordinate efforts. Louisiana will have a lot more resources, not only people-wise, but also equipment and federal money to help address the issue.
For the second year in a row, saltwater from the Gulf of Mexico has moved farther up the Mississippi, threatening drinking water in communities that rely on the river for fresh.
Mass inflow of saltwater is moving further and further upstream, and now it's looking like it could impact New Orleans, probably in mid-October to late October.
Typically, the river's mighty flow keeps mass amounts of saltwater from reaching too far inland, but hot and dry conditions this summer triggered drought that slowed the Mississippi's flow. News and analysis at townhall.com.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here is tonight's forecast. We're clear and comfy this evening, a low temp dipping to 62. Tomorrow, nice with mostly sunny skies, a high topping out at 83. The weekend looking good too. Saturday and Sunday we'll have sunshine, high temperatures around 84 each day. We'll also stay dry next week and continue the high temps into the mid-80s. I'm Kevin Cohen with your On Point local weather.
As a kid, you dreamed of being a firefighter one day. Now, the opportunity is yours. Answer the sound of sirens. Live your dream. Become a part of a team, a family. Visit scvolunteerfire.org to find out more.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
We are back on Sports Talk here on the Sports Talk Media Network. It's a big Thursday night across the state of South Carolina. So happy to have you with us wherever you have been. If you're just joining us, Mr. Great First Hour, MJ Ward from over in Italy, preparing for the first day of the Ryder Cup in the morning. Talked about South Carolina, Tennessee, and Clemson and Syracuse. We'll talk more about that coming up in just a little bit. Bottom of the hour, Will and the Thrill. Also coming up, we got some recruiting news for you as well. But right now, it is time to welcome in Mike Morgan for another edition of Morgan on the Move here on Sports Talk. Hey, South Carolinians, whether you or a loved one are about to receive Medicare or you want to improve your current Medicare situation, Brian Spencer of Palmetto Medicare is the guy for you. Brian started Palmetto Medicare in 2005, and for nearly 20 years, he has one to trust with that all-important decision of who will handle your Medicare benefits. Brian Spencer is your guy. He can be reached with one simple phone call, 803-960-9484. Consultation is absolutely free, 803-960-9484. You can also visit the website, palmettomedicare.com. That's palmetto-medicare.com.
Sponsored by Love Chevrolet. There are lots of places to buy your next ride, but there is no place like Love Chevy, where you never pay more than MSRP, ever. Come by and feel the difference of love. I-26 at Harbison and at lovechevy.com. Find new roads.
And now we welcome Mike Morgan, the man of multiple endorsements here on Sports Talk, as he collects a lot of money for his time and his very valuable time here on Sports Talk. Mikey, good evening. It's great to have you with us once again.
Good evening. You know, I just want to say that the guy who introduces Love Chevrolet, he might have better pipes, but he doesn't have the passion that you do for Palmetto-Medicare.com and Brian Spencer.
No.
He can't hold a candle to the passion within your voice. It's not all about pipes. It's about passion, and you bring it.
Well, he probably needs some Medicare, okay? That guy sounds like he's 85 years old, so he could probably use a little Medicare advice, if you ask me. No, he's got great advice.
Smoking 3 packs a day, flushing it down with whiskey and sandpaper.
Most of the great pipes I remember back in my early years of radio, they were developed through the cigarette smoke world.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I mean, everybody you listen to on radio and TV back in the day, they were all chain smokers. So you're basically, you're listening to phlegm. When you listen to this segment, it's a no phlegm zone.
That's
no smokers, pure, crystal clear, healthy air coming out of our lungs.
Especially when you're dealing with 2 head colds. Like I got one, I'm on the back end, and Bergie's got one that's just starting. So I hope that you are head cold free. Okay, my leadoff topic for you, Deion Sanders. Now, I'm really bothered by the fact that this is becoming a racial thing with him, or so it seems. And I'm hearing stuff, a lot of different ways. And it sounds like a lot of folks in the black community, black coaches, players, etc., are getting the feeling that there are people in the white community, on the white side of things in college athletics, that don't want to see Deion succeed. And, accusations the other day that Dan Lanning from Oregon reached out to other coaches to get information to help them to beat Oregon, of course. I mean, to beat Colorado. They didn't need that help. They just dominated them. They were the better team, and everybody knew going in that was probably going to be a blowout in favor of Oregon. My point is, in asking you this question from the national perspective, this is kind of sad, I think. Don't you think? I mean, Deion's doing great things at Colorado. He has brought unbelievable attention to that program in a short amount of time. Is he going to be a great head coach there? Are they going to win championships in whatever league they happen to be in? Who knows? Time will tell. But he has certainly been he has started to build a program, and he has regenerated the interest in the football program there at Colorado that maybe nobody else could step into that situation and do it like he has.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. Let's start with the coverage itself. I find it humorous that somebody would condemn the coverage of Deion from any community. It's been a slurp fest from the moment he took the job. The spring game was nationally televised on the biggest platform there is for sports. You wouldn't have got that with any other coach. Deion got it and embraced it and used it as a 2-hour recruiting tool, as most coaches do with their spring games on TV. He's at both game days there, ESPN and Fox. He's at every game in a primo national television window, and he's had media members almost feeling, and I know a lot of these guys, almost feeling like if they don't say something overwhelmingly positive about Deion's coaching ability, that they'll be criticized for it. Never has there been a coach with his background or lack thereof who's coached 3-4 games, gotten so much positive attention and been glorified at this point. And I don't have a problem with it. That's fine. I mean, I knew that was going to happen. I know the landscape of this business pretty well, where I knew how this was going to be covered. But for somebody to go on there and criticize anybody who's not canonizing Deion as the next Bear Bryant, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, why are you so sensitive to that? Because for the most part, he has been gravy trained from moment one on. He has been absolutely glorified with every win, and he finally had some comeuppance. And to Deion's credit, I mean, he called it like it was. They got their tails kicked in. What else is he going to say? I don't know. But look, this to me is very symbolic of what Georgetown was back in the day. Georgetown was not just, and I happen to spend a piece of my childhood in in Virginia near the campus. And so I was a Georgetown fan growing up as a kid. I was a John Thompson fan growing up as a kid. I went to camps there. I loved the campus. I knew the area. But for a lot of people, they were Georgetown fans simply for cultural reasons. And if you criticize them, well, then that made you a bad person. And I see a little bit of this going on, but I think most people know better, and most people see the story for what it is, and people are going to bring their own agendas to the table on the coverage of it. But I just look at it for what it is. I think it's a great story. I've likened it to, this is almost like an experiment. You're taking a guy who's, coached 2 years at Jackson State, and that's it. Never been a coordinator, never been an assistant coach, and he gets a Power 5 job. Now, that's normally not the way you get a Power 5 job, but he's Deion Sanders. I mean, he is a Hall of Famer, and if you want to get some attention right away, and you want to give a boost to a program that needs it, and certainly Colorado needed it, then it's a good thing. So, I mean, I like the story. The coverage of it is going to disappoint you on some levels, and I can tell on your voice that it has you. But overall, I think it's great. I've said all along, me personally, not that anybody cares, I'm not pulling against or for Deion. I'm just taking the story at face value. Yeah. I'm just looking to be entertained by it. But no one's going to tell me I have to tell you that Deion's a great coach. Why? Because Keyshawn Johnson told me I have to? I'm a grown man. I don't need Keyshawn Johnson to tell me what my opinion should be based on. By the same token, I'm not going to sit there and spend energy hating Deion or pulling against Colorado. Contrary, I think it's good for Colorado to be relevant, and it's good for Deion to have some success there. So I'm just here for the ride. I'm just going to sit back, watch, and enjoy.
I think it's fun. I love listening to him talk. I just hate when people take sides based on race, and we're hearing some of that. He should be celebrated by all sides. Yeah, it is, especially with the talking heads on television that have to have something to really stir up throughout the day. I get that's their job, but it's kind of sad. All right, second thing. Here it is. We're still in September, and two weird things in football are going to happen this weekend based on history. One in the SEC, one in the ACC. We got Georgia-Auburn playing in September, never been done before. And you got Notre Dame playing at Duke in what is a huge national game, probably almost never been done before. So those two games, what do you think? I know the Georgia-Auburn game, because Auburn is not a national program right now, but it's still Georgia-Auburn. Long series, a lot of passion, big in the SEC. And then, Notre Dame coming off that heartbreaking home loss to Ohio State, they've got to go down to play a Duke team that they had better not be sleeping on.
Well, no, and I trust if they have 11 men on the field on defense, Notre Dame will be in better shape. But, I mean, first off, kudos to Duke for actually having game day there. And, it's probably the most fanfare they've had there since the Stones performed in 1986. Different type of performance, obviously, but I did a little research on that old Wallace Wade Stadium, the history of. But that's intriguing on one end, and you mentioned Georgia Auburn. It's a little hard for me as someone who's followed that game since I was a kid to see Georgia just so much better than Auburn. I mean, I don't know if Auburn can score against Georgia. They certainly put on a woeful offensive display against A&M, and I don't think Georgia's defense is going to take a back seat to the Aggies. So, yeah, it's weird that the game is in September. It's even weirder to me that nobody thinks it's going to be very competitive.
Mike Morgan on the move here tonight on Sports Talk. And Mike, wanted to shift gears over to Major League Baseball because Phil won't let us talk about it anymore because for the first time in 30 years, the postseason will not include the Yankees, Red Sox, or Cardinals. But the Braves are still around. And I wanted to get your take on Ronald Acuna and what he has accomplished, becoming the first player, 40 home runs, 70 stolen bases. It's clearly remarkable since it's never happened before. But in terms of just his base stealing ability, can you start to even begin to talk about him? I realize it's early in his career in the same breath as, say, a Ricky Henderson, a Lou Brock, those type guys who, all-time base stealers in Major League Baseball.
Well, I mean, I think Ronald Acuna, and this is kind of weird to say, but he's got a chance to be a much better all-around hitter than Ricky Henderson, even though Ricky is, like you said, a Hall of Famer that still holds the stolen base record. He's not going to put up Ricky Henderson-type numbers in terms of stealing over 100 a year. Vince Coleman back in the day did it 3 years in a row with the Cardinals. But he's a better hitter than both those guys. I mean, he's one of the most naturally gifted players I've ever seen or ever covered. I mean, it's just amazing. And you see this year with him finally being 100% healthy, what he's able to do. He really had a goal in mind to not just have a good year, but to have a historically good year, and that's exactly what he's done with 40 home runs and 70 steals. And he makes everything look so easy. There's no weakness in his game. And any other year, by the way, Matt Olson could be the MVP. Right. But this season, it's going to be Acuna over Mookie Betts in all likelihood, and a lot of people are on Team Mookie, who's also had a terrific year. I just don't know how you don't give it to Acuna based on everything he's done, based on the team's success, based on everything, really. He's the face of the franchise. For all the good players that the Braves have, Acuna is still the face of that team. And now with a healthy Acuna going into the postseason, you know, that's not only a win for the Braves, it's a win for Major League Baseball because he's one of the most exciting players to watch.
And with a win tonight, or if the Orioles lose again before the end of the regular season, they'll clinch home field throughout the World Series. And from a team perspective, I mean, I hate to use invincible, but I mean, how big of an advantage is that going to be for them to play all their series with home field at Truist Park?
You know, it's big, but one thing I just caution about the postseason, like the format is great in that it's never rewarded the best record in your league more than it has the last couple of years with this format, which I love. It makes every game down the stretch still relevant, even when the Braves have pretty much clinched their division a while ago. But if history has taught us anything, it's not the team with the best record, even in this format, that wins it all. And the Braves, the year they won it, that was not a great regular season team, but they won the World Series. Last year was a really good regular season team, and they lost. So it truly hit the reset button. That is not cliche in baseball. It might be cliche in football. It might be cliche in the NBA, but it's not an MLB. And as good as the Braves, I think there's a little undercurrent here in Atlanta of, man, this almost has been too easy. Like, what's the catch? What's the rub? What should we be concerned about, if not paranoid about, because there's going to be some teams in a short series in the National League where you can lose. I mean, you can lose, and then now you add the injuries to guys like Morton and Fried, particularly Morton. I mean, they gave him a lot of money, not because he's in the prime of his career, but because you want that one veteran stud on the mound to help lead the way. And I don't think you're going to have him for that first series. So it's going to be very interesting still. The Braves are by no means a lock, but I don't think there's a more talented team out there, that's for sure.
Sticking with
Michael,
the Braves.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pat.
One more Braves question, if I may. So while sticking with this, we have the postseason now just ahead for the Braves. With the injury now to Charlie Morton, I want to get your thoughts on what you think the rotation may be for the Braves. So, of course, you have Spencer Strider, Bryce Elder, Max Fried, assuming he can stay healthy. But then that fourth starter that you might have in the postseason, do you think it might be a Kyle Wright? Or now you have some folks out there kind of talking behind scenes. They're talking about the rookie out of Florida, Hurston Waldrep, potentially coming in as that fourth starter, or maybe even being like a long inning reliever for the Braves in the postseason, even though he's never made a start in Major League Baseball. What are your thoughts there on the rotation?
Yeah, I don't think Waldrop will be a starter. I don't think you'd put that on the young man, but I do think, you know, you hit on the right names, and really, especially in a short series, you know, you don't need to go that deep. If you've got a strong 3 and then a capable 4, you're good enough to win postseason series. The Morton one is concerning to me, and Fried is concerning. I mean, I know he's supposed to be healthy, but I'd like a cleaner bill of health to feel a little bit more secure about it. And then you mentioned Elder. I mean, Elder has struggled. he needs to be better, and he's still young, and this will be a little bit raw for him to be dependent upon with that amount of responsibility. So I still think the rotation is in great shape, but I'd feel a lot better about it if those guys were 100% healthy.
All right, Mike, I just got a message here on our stream. David Marchbanks, former Gamecock pitcher, you know well, says he loves him some Mike.
Awesome.
Hey, I love me some David Marchbanks. David Marchbanks was a very talented lefty, and followed. You know, he basically emerged right after Kip Balknight moved on. You needed some guys to kind of follow up with that, and David was great for the program during that kind of transitional time. So awesome to hear from you, David. Hope you're doing well.
Well, we're going to let you run because the Ryder Cup is coming up. It's 1:30 in the morning here. I know you have your annual or biannual Ryder Cup party that you're planning. I know since it's in Italy, you're cooking things like pork ragu over creamy polenta with a caprese salad and maybe some Negroni.
I'm impressed, Phil.
All that sounds good. And if it's on Uber Eats, then it'll be at my house.
All right. Have a great one. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, guys.
Mike Morgan on the move here.
We missed out. We should have gotten his breakdown of the USFL and the XFL announcing they were going to merge.
Yeah. Are they now the USFXL?
I think it's actually going to be, I heard, the National Spring Football League or something along those lines.
Correct.
I think it's what they may go with.
You know, football's not careful. They're going to overdo it. I mean, right now you can't prove it because TV ratings are crazy and I guess attendance is still crazy and people are eating it up. But too much of a good thing can be a good thing. All right, got to hit a break on Sports Talk, and we'll be back in just a moment. Coming up after the bottom of the hour, Will and the Thrill will join us, get their thoughts on some things. We've got some recruiting for you as well, an update on a USC target in the 25 class and a target for Clemson in the 26 class, who has the Tigers among his top 10 at this point. We'll be back in a moment right here on Sports Talk.
I'm State Treasurer Curtis Loftus. People often ask me, when should I start saving for college? And I always tell them, start today. September is College Savings Month, a great time to start saving for your child's education. Future Scholar makes it easy to open and manage your account online, and the plan offers options and benefits you won't find with a regular savings or investment account. So make this the month that you go to FutureScholar.com and see why it's the smart, easy way to save for college. FutureScholar.com.
You've put in the work for your education. The extra early, extra late, extra work. That's because you understand education opens doors to better pay, better opportunities, and a better you. Being educated about playing the lottery is no different. It helps you be a better player, one who knows when to play and when to take a rain check. The lottery's a game, so let's keep it fun. Learn more at sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
Major Billy Downer here from the Department of Natural Resources, and DNR is excited to announce the implementation of Go Outdoors SC, a new online licensing and boat titling system that you can access right from your phone. Through this new system, customers can purchase their hunting and fishing licenses, renew their boats, apply for lottery hunt opportunities, and complete electronic harvest reporting requirements. For more information, visit Go Outdoors SC at your local app store.
Hi, it's Phil Kornblut of the Sports Talk Media Network. We love our high school football in South Carolina, and we love bringing you the scores every Friday night. From 10 to midnight, we check in on every region across the state with live reports and coaches' interviews. So whether you're in your car after a game or lounging in your den, be sure to dial up the Founders Federal High School scoreboard Friday nights right here on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Farm Bureau Insurance's agricultural roots and ties to South Carolina farmers have shaped the company's culture and work ethic, providing a unique customer experience. Customers are treated like people, not policies. Now, while other insurance companies may have a one-size-fits-all approach to handling customers, we believe you need to be valued and treated right. Our claims professionals work until the job is done, and our agents still believe in the commitment that comes with a handshake. Call Buddy Bridges in Clinton and Lawrence at 864-923-2174 for all of your auto, home, and life insurance needs.
Time for recruiting here on Sports Talk, brought to you by our good friends at Seawells. A reminder, tomorrow is a Roast Beef Friday for the daily luncheon buffet from 11 till 2. It's only $15, and you won't find a better place to eat tomorrow. Seawells across from the State Fairgrounds in Columbia. 2025 safety John Tay Gilbert, 6'1", 175 from Atlanta, just picked up an offer from Texas. He's got the Gamecocks, Southern Cal, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Miami, Tennessee, A&M, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Michigan State. Recently decommitted from Ohio State, actually back in July. Asked him kind of where things are, who's trending, who leads. He said, quote, really, South Carolina, most definitely. You could say that. They are really high on my list. That's all I can say right now, high on my list. Asked him if he's kind of heading towards a commitment pretty soon, and he only would respond with they're high on my list. So things look good for the Gamecocks with him. He's been to South Carolina 4 times recently over the past few months, coming back for the Clemson game and perhaps a game prior to that. He is going to go to Southern Cal on October 7th. The only other visit he's made this year was to Georgia Tech. USC target running back Daniel Hill takes his official to Tennessee this weekend. USC target offensive tackle Jordan Seaton taking an unofficial to Tennessee. And Clemson's in the top 10 with 2026 linebacker Tyler Atkinson of Lawrenceville, Georgia. Be back.
Is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here is tonight's forecast. We're clear and comfy this evening, a low temp dipping to 62. Tomorrow, nice with mostly sunny skies, a high topping out at 83. The weekend looking good, too. Saturday and Sunday, we'll have sunshine, high temperatures around 84 each day. We'll also stay dry next week and continue the high temps into the mid-80s. I'm Kevin Cohen with your on-point local weather.
September means football and fall temps rolling in, but when it comes to our favorite fur babies, the shelters are still full from summer, and those dogs and cats need you more than ever. While the leaves are changing colors, these pets are sitting in the shelter looking for a new family. Be a hero to your kids. Be a hero to these puppies and kitty cats. Visit PetFinder.com to take a look at all the great dogs and cats available to you. That's PetFinder.com.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting House Republicans have spent a long hearing making their case for pursuing an impeachment inquiry against President Biden. They launched their first hearing Thursday, promising to provide accountability as they probe the family's finances and the lucrative business dealings of Biden's son Hunter. It's a high-stakes opening act for Republicans as they try to link the dealings of Biden's son to the president. The separatist government of Nagorno-Karabakh says it will dissolve itself and the unrecognized republic will cease to exist by the end of the year. Armenian officials say over 78,000 people, about 65% of the region's population of 120,000, has already left for Armenia. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 116 points, the Nasdaq rose 108, the S&P advanced 25. More details at srnnews.com.
I sure like to brag about good local businesses. Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning is a great local biz. Josh and his team stress customer service as their top priority. Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning came out to my house. I had a toilet that wasn't working right, a garbage disposal that died. They came out right on time, told me everything they were going to do, and explained the price of each repair before even bringing in the tools. I knew exactly what I was getting and exactly what it would cost. Their prices are fair, their team is courteous and professional, plus they did a great job fixing what needed fixing in my home. I am very careful about making any recommendations, and I'm thrilled and confident to suggest you call Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning for any plumbing needs. If it's a repair or to replace something, if it's that tankless water heater that you've always wanted to give you that endless hot water and save you some money. They unclog drain and sewer lines and so much more. Online, you'll find them at franklinplumbing.sc.com or just give Josh and those great folks a phone call, 799-2222. That's 799-2222, and tell them you heard about them from here at The Point.
Shepherd's Glass has provided commercial, residential, and auto glass installation, repair, and replacement to Columbia for over 50 years. Large retail storefronts, auto, custom shower enclosures, and mirrors for that remodeling or new construction project. Visit shepherdsglass.com to see and learn more. Now with 2 locations on Flat Springs Road in West Columbia and Chapin at 855 Chapin Road. shepherdsglass.com.
Shepherd's Glass, a true reflection of quality.
Every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on The Point, join me, Chad Jordan, and my co-host Larry Jordan for the Palmetto Real Estate Pros. We'll help you out whether you're looking to buy, sell, or just learn all things real estate every Friday right here at 100.7 The Point.
Hey, honey, do you remember if Dad took his meds this morning?
You know, I'm not sure.
He isn't either. Keeping up with his meds is overwhelming.
You know, True Pharmacy packages medication. They showed me a sample, and it even separates them by date and time of day.
Something like that would be really helpful for Dad and for me.
Even better, it's free, just for being their customer. True Pharmacy, 1628 Charleston Highway and 3217 Devine Street, or TrueRxSC.com.
Hey, it's Jay with the Cigar Militia, Columbia's premium cigar store. Have you noticed the change in weather? Some people call it fall. We call it cigar smoking season. Or better yet, it's football weather. Come in and check out our humidor and do what I do and get your go-to stick or try something new. We've got an awesome staff willing to walk you through and help you find your new favorite. And besides, you're going to need some celebration cigars for when your favorite team wins the big game. The Cigar Militia, 1410 Colonial Life Boulevard.
Hi, this is Joel Lurie. I'm the host of Health Matters every Monday morning from 9 to 10 right here on 100.7 The Point. Join me as we talk about issues impacting your health and our community. It's Health Matters every Monday at 9 a.m. right here on The Point.
In just a moment, we'll be joined by Will and the Thrill, Will Merritts and Carl the Thrill Hill. Be joining us here in just a little bit. Another recruiting note just seeing here, USC basketball target Trent Noah is going to be announcing Sunday, 2 o'clock. He is going to be doing it through the auspices of On3 Recruits YouTube channel. All right, and South Carolina was one of his official visits, and the Gamecocks, of course, on his short list, he's got Dayton, he's got Butler, he's got Richmond, Seton Hall, Western Kentucky, Stanford. Those were the ones that he had on his short list, and he'll be announcing Sunday at 2 o'clock. So USC possibility there out of Harlan, Kentucky. So see what happens there for Gamecock basketball after getting a commitment earlier this week. I would think with the Gamecocks having him just in for his official visit, and now he is deciding to go ahead and make his announcement, I would think that the Gamecocks might be in pretty good shape there with a chance to land him. 6'7" forward, Harlan, Kentucky. And His grandfather played football at Kentucky, by the way. So South Carolina, Central Florida, Seton Hall, Western Kentucky, Butler, St. Louis, and Stanford were his short list. And he took officials to practically everyone. Now I've had him scheduled for St. Louis for this weekend. If that visit takes place, then we'll see what happens. Otherwise, he took official visits to Seton Hall, Western Kentucky, Butler, USC, Richmond, and Dayton, and also Loyola Chicago. Loyola Chicago not factoring in here at the end. So something to keep a watch on Sunday, as if your Sunday isn't already busy enough as it is. All right, before we get to Will and the Thrill, Chris, any thoughts about anything Mike Morgan had to say in the last half hour?
No, I thought his stuff was fascinating and funny as always. His comments about the Braves, I think, are spot on. I mean, that team has just been remarkable all season long, but everything now, the Braves over the years have been geared to be a really, really good regular season team. I think back to their dominant decade of the 90s. How many division titles and LCS titles did they claim, and then they couldn't finish it off in the World Series? This team, as good as it has been, it's not going to be judged on what it did during the regular season. They're going to be judged by what happens in October. And if for some reason their pitching doesn't show up one night or two, they could be in a little bit of trouble. I still think they're the odds-on favorite to win the World Series. But again, baseball's a funny game, and the Dodgers and the Orioles over in the American League may have a lot to say about that.
Okay, with that said, let's see who has a lot to say about the Gamecocks and the Tigers. It is time once again here on Sports Talk to welcome in two superior athletes back in their day. I wouldn't say that today, but back in their day, in their own ways. They were outstanding football players. Former Gamecock defensive end Carl the Thrill Hill, also known as Shill, and Will the Pill Merritt. He's got to have a nickname. We don't have a good nickname for Will. Will the Pill Merritt with us here on Sports Talk. Good evening, fellas. Will, let's begin with you because...
Well, I mean, I do take offense a little bit that Carl and I are not called superior athletes these days. I mean,
I don't think either one of you could get up and down a football field more than 2 times before passing out.
Well, I mean, yes, we might need a defibrillator, but I mean, we can still get up and down the field. I mean, come on now. I mean, Carl and I we can get up down the field.
All right, Carl, am I undervaluing you two guys at this late stage of life?
I tell you like this here, it all depends on what your definition of an athlete is. I think you can think whatever an athlete may be, but hey, I played tennis with my granddaughter, played tennis with my son. I'm still athlete. I'm just not a great athlete anymore.
I mean, come on now, Phil. I swam for 30 laps this morning. Come on now.
Whoa, I'm impressed. Okay. Will, I'll start with you. I'm sure you have some things to say about Clemson losing to Florida State, how they lost that game, the position they're in now, and just the state of things at Clemson this year.
Well, it's been kind of a crazy day, and I'll tell you right now, nobody ever knew where Clemson was going to land. Obviously, we didn't know that we were going to lose that game the way we did. I mean, Florida State is a good football team, but then I don't think that anybody knew that we were going to be on the backside of, leaving the ACC and trying to find a new home. And I mean, it's been a crazy couple of days. But I will tell you this. I think Clemson's going to land on their feet. That's what I think. I mean, I think they're gonna be okay, and everybody that's going to offer them to come and play for them and be in their conference is, I mean, we're a commodity right now. I mean, we're kind of like South Carolina. We're kind of like Georgia. We're kind of like everybody else. Everybody wants they want us to be a part of what they're doing. And I think that's a good thing.
Are you convinced that Clemson is headed out of the ACC?
100%.
Wow.
100%.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, I don't think there's any doubt they're going to leave the ACC.
Where do you think they will land? Where is your information or your gut instinct telling you they will land?
The SEC.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where I think they're going to land. And I think that's where they belong. I think they've been an SEC school for a long time, playing in the ACC, but at the same time, I mean, you know, cooler heads have to prevail, and they have to be able to make those decisions, and that there's a lot of money at stake. And there's a lot of paperwork to do.
Mm-hmm.
But do I think they're an SEC team playing in the ACC? Absolutely, I do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay, Carl, the Gamecocks are an SEC team playing in the SEC, and they beat an SEC team last week. They got a chance to go 2-1 in league play if they can beat Tennessee on Saturday night. What did you take away from the Mississippi State game that you want to see carried over to Knoxville? And also, what did you see that you don't want them to bring to Knoxville?
Basically, I offensively feel that was probably one of the best play calling games that I've seen in the cockpit in a long time. You rush the ball inside, but when you rush the ball outside, you hit somebody, pull it in the hole to give the running back an extra blocker. You had some zone jet sweeps go on with your receivers. Your quarterback was running the ball, so Mississippi State couldn't tell who was going to run the ball. That's why we had success running the ball. If we need to throw it more, we got the best quarterback on our schedule right now, and I'm keep saying that from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So with him, we can win any football game, especially being able to run the ball with a more diverse game plan that I've seen in a long time. Defensively, the only problem we had defensively was, you know, sometimes feel the coaches beat you in the brain with the game plan, and this is what they do. This is their tendency. They don't throw the ball deep. They're going to try to run the ball because we can't stop the run. So you had one guy. It was only one guy on every deep pass. He wanted to make a tackle on a running back that didn't have the ball, and the receiver running behind him. It's just more, he was making plays, stopping the run, and he cheated too much, and then didn't have the awareness until late in the fourth quarter, which he did change completely. He stopped peeking down and covered the deep third, and they didn't have any more success like that. So defensive, we just got the defensive line, those guys, I call them the Danny boys, all them big nasty 90s, they all nasty. They playing good, man. So linebackers playing good. We just need to be a little bit more aggressive on defensively. But offensively, I think we're going to be able to do anything we want against those guys up there.
What do you think of the development of the defensive front since the beginning of the season? What kind of improvement are you seeing on that defensive front? In particular, I'm thinking about T.J. Sanders and how he's becoming almost, not going to say a dominant player, but a very effective player on the defensive line.
You kind of have to remember, this is a brand new coach for them. It takes some time for kids to believe kind of what the coach is saying. But when the coach can put stuff on film and then tell you why his way is working, will work better than what you're doing right now, and the guys start believing in it, I think this is nothing more than a relationship thing. And I think they have an excellent relationship now, and I think those guys will listen and do what they're told.
Hold on.
And they have been doing.
Hot loader.
Pat, go ahead.
Hey, Will, circling back to what's going on up in Clemson and about whether they stay, whether they leave, you may or may not be able to answer this, not trying to put you on the spot, but if you are able to answer, in the back of your mind, who do you think is actually driving the train for Clemson here? Like, who ultimately is the decision-making maker here of whether Clemson stays in the ACC or whether they leave? Is it President Clements? Is it Athletic Director Graham Neff? Or is Dabo Swinney as the head coach of the moneymaker of the school, who is ultimately making the decision here, you think?
Well, I mean, that is a fantastic question. And I will tell you right now that, I mean, the decision is going to be made on, you know, who has the most dollars. You know, I mean, it's still a money thing. I mean, that's all it is. You know, I mean, it's a moneymaker type thing. And you know, right now, I think that in addition to just the money, I think it's also matchups. And right now, I think the SEC is the best matchups. I mean, it's going to be the most eyeballs that will be watching television and watching these games. And, I mean, who doesn't want to see, you know, Clemson and Georgia and LSU and Alabama and Arkansas and everybody else? You know, I mean, that's what everybody wants.
But answer this. I think what Pat was trying to ask you directly was, at Clemson, in the administration down to Dabo Swinney, who's making the call? Who's making the decision on stay or leave and where to go? Who?
You sound like a true politician.
I think you know that answer, Phil.
I really don't, because we debated it last night and they went against what I'm thinking. I mean, they're thinking Dabo Swinney's making the call.
I'm telling you right now, he's making the call.
Oh,
there you go.
There you go. See, Pat and I are a lot smarter, Phil, than you give us
well,
credit.
if Will says it, by God, it must be true.
I mean, I'm just, you know, I'm telling you right now. I mean, you don't pay somebody $11 million a year to not make the call.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, obviously the board of trustees. I mean, they have to approve any decision. I mean, you know that.
Right. Right.
I mean, you know the chain of command that it has to go down. But I mean, you obviously know that a man that's won a couple of national championships and I mean, he's got a little bit of influence.
Okay. Carl, Gamecocks, Tennessee. What do you think's going to happen? Do you think your guys come out with a W?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody's acting like Tennessee. They're not that good. They hadn't played anybody, and Florida beat them, and Florida probably won't even go to a bowl game. Florida rushed for over 90 yards on them. They were almost trailing Austin Peay at half. It was 13-6. They hadn't played anybody. The offensive line is not good. The defense, Florida showed you that. Their secondary is not good. They got a good quarterback. They don't have any receiver that will scare you like they had last year, and a pro tight end, two pro receivers, and a pro quarterback. None of those guys on that field. Tennessee can't scare you. That money line and all that other stuff I got on my phone, man, I'm going to have me a good week. Tennessee, Gamecocks win outright. You don't need points. We'll probably win by 10.
Oh, all right, Will, going up to Syracuse, what do you think? Tigers going to get it right or come home with a third straight ACC loss? Unthinkable, but it's possible.
Well, I'm always scared to death about going to Syracuse, and I'm actually scared to death about playing Syracuse. Period. Especially having to travel and then go up there. But I think we're a better football team. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think we're one of the better 2-2 teams in the country. But I mean, you travel and you never know what it's like playing. I mean, Phil, I don't know how many. Have you ever been to the Carrier Dome?
Oh, yeah. This will be, I think, my third or fourth time. I'll be up there this weekend, third or fourth time.
Well, isn't it ironic that it's named after an air conditioning company with no air conditioning?
Actually,
inside of a dome?
Actually, that's the way it was. That is the way it was because, listen, they don't need air conditioning up there very much. However, they went through a multi-million-dollar refurbishment, and they have a new name. So they have air conditioning now, and it's now the JMW Wireless Stadium. I think that's right, JMW, something like that. But, yeah, that was weird back in the day that you had the Carrier as the name, but Carrier is a huge company right there located in Syracuse.
I have never sweat more calling a football game than I did inside that dome. I mean, it was awful. I mean, but anyways, here, all we have to really do is we just got to take care of the football. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, we got to stop turning the ball over. And if we do, I mean, we're better than they are, and we'll come home with a win.
All right. Time for the rivalry meter read of the week. Carl, let's go to you, sir. You're the more honest of the two when it comes to reading the rivalry meter.
What's that?
Because I know what Will's going to say, but go ahead, Carl. What you got this week on the rivalry meter?
It's still looking good, man. It's heading toward the good side. I'm still at a 6.5. I just think we got a better chance of beating them. And I don't think there's a team on our schedule that can beat us right now.
Hey, run the table? Wow. Gamecock's going to run the table?
There's not a team on our schedule right now that's got a better quarterback and a better defense than what we have. So, yes.
Yo. All right, Will, you heard that. What are you reading on the rivalry meter?
11.
You're a 0-2 ACC team, and you're still thinking 11.
Yep, 11.
I did drop it from 12. Didn't you have it at 12 last week?
Will? What did you expect from me, Phil? Come on.
That's
now.
what I said. We can't get the truth out of you, so.
I know you're not. And listen, and guess what? After week 10, it might be a 2. But I'm still now 11.
It's 11. Guys, as always, we appreciate you. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, fellas.
Okay.
Guys.
Y'all have a wonderful weekend.
All right. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Carl. The Thrill, the Chill Hill. Will
Shane Beaver were smart. He would have Carl Hill deliver the pregame pep
I think
talk.
He should, yeah. And Will needs to go he thinks well, you guys agree with him. He thinks Dabo Sweeney's pulling the chains on this whole deal. Maybe that's right. Maybe university president, AD, the board, you are paying a guy $11 million or whatever it is. So maybe
don't you listen to the highest paid employee,
right,
in any organization? Yeah, I mean, but you have to listen to him, right?
But you have to think about this too. We got to hit the break. I mean, of course, I guess everybody there is there temporarily. The only thing that's there forever is the school. I mean, coaches, presidents, and ADs all come and go, and they make decisions for the here and now. Maybe not for 20 years down the road, when the school will still be there, but they'll be long gone. So maybe you're right. Maybe Dabo's saying, hey, let's move it. Let's go to the SEC. Let's make some more money and redo our indoor facility or build something else new. All right, we'll hit the break. Be back to wrap it up in just a moment.
It's Friday Night Live at Lakeside Lodge in Clemson, and you're invited. It's the place to be in Tiger Town the night before every Clemson football game, home or away. Lakeside has the fantastic restaurant and bar, Traditions on the Lake, plus an online TV show featuring Tiger legends Joe and Jeff Boston. And we finish with the best live bands in the upstate. Be sure to check out the Asthmatics from Atlanta on September 29th and Odyssey on October 6th. It's Friday Night Live at Lakeside Lodge in Clemson.
South Carolina's taste buds have spoken, and they're asking for beef. There are more than 7,800 farms raising cattle from pasture to plate in the Palmetto State. Whether it's steaks on the grill before the big game, sirloin medallions plated for date night, or burgers with the family, make sure beef is a part of your playbook this football season. Smoked, grilled, and slow roasted. Find the best way to enjoy your beef at sccattle.org. Beef. It's what's for dinner in South Carolina. Funded by the South Carolina Beef Council, part of the Beef Checkoff Program.
South Carolinians, this message is for you, whether you or a loved one are about to receive Medicare or want to improve your current Medicare situation. Brian Spencer of Palmetto Medicare is the guy for you. This is Mike Morgan, and I've known Brian for over 20 years. He started Palmetto Medicare in 2005, and here's what I can tell you about Brian. He's not the best-looking guy in the world. He's not a poet. He's not a very good golfer. He can't sing at all, not even in the shower. All of this is true. But here's what else I can tell you about Brian Spencer. There's no one I would trust more with that all-important decision of who will handle your Medicare benefits. Palmetto Medicare is local, specific, and native to the Palmetto State. Any and all plans in South Carolina are available through Palmetto Medicare, and they offer a free annual Medicare and prescription review. So with that in mind, there's just one phone call to make. 803-960-9484. 803-960-9484. Let Brian Spencer do the one thing he is good at, helping people with all their Medicare needs.
Football season is upon us, and that means Columbia is welcoming fans from around the corner and across the country. No matter where you're from, Gamecocks love coming together for game day energy that can only be found in South Carolina's capital city. Book hotel rooms, find pre- and post-game activities, and plan your tailgate spread with local favorites from pimento cheese to barbecue at experiencecolumbiasc.com. We'll see you soon, and go Gamecocks!
All right, real quick, one more recruiting note. One-time USC basketball target, 6'4", kid out of Charlotte, Bishop, what's his name? I just tweeted his information. Anyway, he committed to Tennessee. See if I can pull this up. Bishop Boswell, 6'4" shooting guard out of Charlotte, committed to Tennessee. South Carolina had been on him, but was not among his finalists. And Josh Heupel has updated the injuries there at Tennessee. And he says he feels real good about receiver Ramel Keaton, running back Jalen Wright had a good week. Center Cooper Mays, who's not played this year, practiced well. So those three guys might very well suit up against the Gamecocks. Very quickly, Hank in Columbia, quick comments on the Clemson deal. What's up, Hank?
Hey, Corn, I got just real quickly. You know, one of the reasons that Dabo may be looking to pull this trigger that you had talked about is, one, with this NIL and all this stuff coming up, you're going to need more money than what Clemson's had in the past if he's going to hold the standard of recruiting at that level.
Yeah, but and thank you, Hank, you're not supposed to use your TV money for NIL. That's supposed to come from you and from Will and from Thrill. Sure. It's not supposed to come from the TV revenue. Yeah. At least that's what they say. That'll do it, folks. Thank you, Chris, Pat. See you tomorrow from Syracuse.
Someone will be right with you. The Point.